welcome back to the podcast. So we're waiting for Stoney to join us. I'm not sure what's going on there. It's funny because Stoney is usually in almost every one of our live chats. But I thought what we could do to bide some time is let's bring on Hunter. And Hunter, you can just entertain us.
Hello, everybody. Today we're over in MTV. Welcome to my crib. We've got the unmade bed behind me here. We've got the shoes on the floor over in the corner. And I mean, listen, if you're joining the podcast to get some real world experience, this right here is some real world interning experience. We're living it up here at High Point. What can I say?
Wow. I'm picturing a huge heap of clothes, like just off camera.
It's right here.
It's like
I'm serious. It's right here.
All right. Well, actually, what we can do, which Hunter, you and I briefly discussed right before going live, is I do have our ad data. So keeping with the theme, and we're totally improvising here, of messy data, what we can do is actually go over this ad strategy, which, Hunter, we briefly talked about this. Have we talked about kind of the overall strategy that we're doing right now?
No, but if you wanted to review it again, then go ahead.
Sure. Actually, let's back up all the way. So we have our preliminary test. So my understanding of marketing is that starting a new, like a whole new venture and marketing that it's kind of a mess. So we just did our preliminary test, and let's change this so that we've got,
I think Stoney might be here.
All right. Hey, Stoney, you're not in the studio space though? That's weird.
Stoney, did you click on there's two links. Did you click on the StreamYard one or the Google Meet one?
So I sent you an email with the StreamYard link. Let's see if he pops in here. But while he's getting joined, let me do this so it's the entire year. Where is this? All right, I guess we can just do all time.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
join the StreamYard one, Stoney.
He's on the Google Meet.
Yeah.
Some technical difficulties. All right. Well, he's getting brought in. Oh, Haley, welcome. What's up? All right. So we had 14 impressions, 1,000 views, 68 clicks at a cost of almost $500. Hunter, with zero context, do you think that this is a good average cost per click?
I think it could do better.
True. And so this was our first test, and it was kind of a failure, but we came and modified our strategy. So instead of just blasting it out, kind of, we tried the like smart. It's like smart ads or something where they use AI, and I guess the level of sophistication is just not there. To where, all right, with this new plan that we did our YouTube ad placement, so we've had, I mean, look at that, 168 clicks for a cost of $200. So now we're starting to refine the approach. All right. Hey, Gerson, welcome. All right, let's see. So Stoney, we sent you an email from the calendar event with a link to it.
Yeah, it's the link. It's the link above the Google Meet one. So like when you get sent go to your email, whatever one is linked up to your calendar, and the StreamYard link is the one that's at the top, and then the fake one is underneath that. I don't know why it sends that one too, but no, this is the same pair of earphones, Matt. This is the same pair. You talk about this every time. This is my gaming headset.
Ridiculous. All right, so I did want to break down the placements, which is interesting. So what we're doing for our strategy, so instead of just advertising to the overall internet, we're now focusing on other YouTuber analytics channels. So we got Alex the Analyst, we got Luke Barros, How to Power BI, Ken G, and now what we can do is sort by the KPI, which is clicks, which is the most important right now. You can see that Alex the Analyst and Luke are neck and neck right now. So we got 47 and 48. Oh, actually, Alex is winning because then that 30 bumps him way up. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting seeing where we're placing the ads specifically. And for example, like Ken G's audience is probably one of the biggest that we're advertising to, but we've only got 7 clicks. Hunter, why do you think that might be
target market, I think. So a lot of Kenji's followers are people who are very technical. If I've seen a few of his videos, and they've talked about like stock and analyzation and a lot of algorithms and how to sort through that. And it's great stuff, but it's a little bit of a different audience than we have here at How to Get an Analytics Job. We kind of focus on soft skills and bringing some people on for hard skills sometimes, but primarily we're a more well-rounded channel. I think he's more focused on the data science of things.
Yeah, well, saying we're more well-rounded is a slight dig at Kid.
Really?
Well, just saying, like, well, it's kind of like one of those like underhanded insults or compliments. But I would say we're more focused on business analytics. He's more on the technical side, like just like what you said.
Well, that's kind of what I meant. I did not mean to.
We're just more well-rounded.
Yeah, we're just more, yeah.
Interesting. All right. And then also too, so we had a few different videos. So coming back to the overview, and by the way, I'm still learning the Google Ads interface. Like this is the first time that I'm running my own ads account. So let's see, we can click on, we have 2 ad groups. So the retail sales case study course and the marketing. And then we can see there are multiple ads within each grouping. So right now we've got the testimony video and then the actual like promo video. We can see it looks like this one is doing really, really well. So it has 59 clicks and the cost of $35 versus 75 and 60. So we're just slowly starting to kind of like feel our way in the dark. I didn't put this in my lecture earlier in the week, but it's almost like, you know how cats are nocturnal and they use their whiskers to feel their way through the dark. That's kind of like the same analogy I wanted to use for starting your new ad campaigns.
Interesting.
So
I think all of this, I think I'm looking at, I mean, this is my first time looking at it too. I think all of this falls under a wider category of like, segmentation. I think this is kind of making leeway for the kind of audience that we're going to have when it comes to our case studies and comes to our courses and stuff like that. I think it's kind of setting like I think the marketing almost sets, the audience, and so you kind of play it. It's like a role. It's like a role. Like once you get started and you find the correct segment, then you just keep going and going, and the more you market to that specific segment, the more impressions you'll end up having.
Awesome. Look who it is, Stoney. Hey there.
I had a little bit of difficulty because the invitation only had the Google link, but when I went back, the email was a little bit different, so it took me a second to find it, and then that the email this morning had the link. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Really
doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
So you want to talk about messy real world data today, right?
Yeah. It's just that it's good to start with structured data that's cleaned, because there's so many things you have to learn at first. You got to put some training wheels on there, but eventually it's really important for you to understand that there's a lot of data problems, and that's the majority of your work. A lot of times you don't get to visualize, generate reports, build models until you've spent time trying to. So let's talk about some of the problems. Is it okay to start talking about this right now?
So I did want to push back a little bit.
Okay.
The data sets that I'm working on small to medium sized business are almost counterintuitively cleaner than, like, if you have $1 billion company, they've got these legacy systems. They've probably been around for 100 years. The data started off in this silo, and then a new department was added, and then there's a new data source over here, and the way that these two connect may or may not work. So I actually don't work with messy data day in and day out. So this is an area of expertise or an area of topic of discussion that I'm not really like super well versed on.
So John, can you tell me kind of like, are these accounting systems? what kind of data are you consuming from these small and medium businesses? And it'll help me understand a little bit more. But I understand what you're saying is that can you hear me still?
It sounds like your connection is cutting in and out a little bit. But to answer your question, a great example is if you're working with a small retail shop. So let's say it's like a mom and pop's, like, I don't know, maybe they sell custom furniture on Elm Street. They're going to use Stripe to collect payment. And almost every time that data is collected perfectly because it's an automated system. I mean, now if you want to start adding like categorization and some additional data to that, it may start to get a little bit messier. But most of the systems that I'm working with collect data automatically. Like while you were figuring out how to get on, we were just looking at Google Ads. Google Ads data is automatically tracked. Now, what's interesting is the lecture that I had earlier this week, we had a marketing analytics expert, and he was saying that the data that Google is tracking is not 100% accurate, but it's good enough to be a proxy for you to make decisions off of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there are people that say, like, when you look at what has happened with Apple, and you look at what's like Google, like Facebook, their Facebook ads includes the Instagram platform, which they are highly promoting, and they're investing time in Instagram right now. They're allowing people to have conversations, and you see people targeting stores from Instagrams because that brand has become much stronger. But what happens, let's say that you use a connector like Fivetran or Census is for reverse, or Google. The problem is, like with upstream data integrations, that they will all of a sudden change the schema on you. So anything afterwards could break, like your transformations could break. So you do need checks for validation, like especially when you're consuming multiple sources. Like you could be consuming Salesforce information, you could be HubSpot, Zendesk. So if these people, like Facebook has more of a move fast and break things mentality because of the business that they're in. So when you're doing like PPC campaigns for like Shopify store for WooCommerce, what's the other one? BigCommerce. You use Elm Street is one of the ones that you were talking about.
Oh no, I just said like an example.
That was
a
an
store
example.
might be on Elm Street, like, or the downtown drag, whatever it is.
Okay.
So that wasn't
so
a data
the problem. Like as an organization becomes larger, like you can have problems with, okay, the data that you receive has changed and now it has broken you, and the people that you work with did not let you know that this was going to happen, or you make changes and you break people downstream. When you're in a smaller organization, you have more control of this, except for your external data sources like Facebook, Google Ads. And there are complaints with both, like Facebook has complaints as well that they inflate their numbers. Again, in the future, there are people that say that we're going to need to go more towards branding. There's also a lot of fraud in advertising. If you use an ad agency because you want to focus on your business and you don't want, like sometimes those people will just spend your ad budget. And if you optimize the wrong KPI, like say people, like they can become overly obsessed with optimization of price per click. But that could be very counterproductive, because at the end of the day, what are you really interested in? You're interested that those ad campaigns are bringing you customers that are converting, and that you are making money. And whenever you start a campaign, at first, you're probably going to lose money at first because you have to fine tune it. And you also, you have to be careful who you take advice from, because some people are just curating and repeating what they hear from other people, which may not work for anybody, or it may not work for you. But we can also just get down to the basics, because a lot of these people, like, are you able to do polls? Is there a polling function in your StreamYard, or are you able to put a poll out to the people that are viewing right now? What's our sample size right now?
So we've got, all I can see right now is that we have 12 watching live on YouTube, but we're also live streaming on LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. So
Okay.
I don't have the exact number right now, and we don't have a live polling function. I mean, I can poll people on LinkedIn, but that's not going to be real time. But I did want to circle back around.
So maybe
to this concept
future,
around like optimizing the wrong KPIs, because what I would call that is a vanity metric. Yeah. And like right now, so like while you were getting logged on, we were reviewing like essentially our first stab at ads for this new platform that we developed. And right now we are optimizing on clicks because we haven't had a direct sale from one of the ads. Now, what I believe has happened though is that someone has come to the website, seen it, then come back, because we have seen an uptick in sales, but we can't tie that specific. It wasn't like they clicked on the ad and they bought immediately. So maybe we need to do some tinkering within the landing pages for the different case study courses.
So also, John, you definitely want to do retargeting. Retargeting is very effective because you've already qualified. You know, that journey down your funnel, when you're tracking your funnel, is going to have multiple touches, and attribution can be pretty tricky. In the future, attribution will become even more difficult. So retargeting ads, where if they visited your website, if they opened your email, and now they have this cookie, when people are going to these platforms. And then the second thing I quickly want to remind people, when you first start out or you're in a small business, you don't have very much data. You don't have high numbers. So what do you want to do? You want to talk to your customers any way you can, especially the people who are buying your product or not buying your product. They have criticism. You want to hear that criticism. It's not don't take it in a bad way. It's a way for you to better position, or better price, or better, like, to figure out why you want to find out what problem are they solving, how valuable is that problem to them, what are they doing right now, is that working for them or not working for them, what if they don't do anything, what is the cost to them, and so you want to have conversations with people. And obviously when you become bigger, this doesn't scale, but this is super important. So when people are telling you we make data-driven decisions, data, don't forget to engage and talk to your customers. Where do your customers hang out? What language does your customer use to describe its problem? Because when you write your sales copy, you want to get away from sales copy, and you want to write content that people actually want to read. You know, like some of these big businesses like Udemy, it's like, I want to just like unsubscribe, but I can't. Or Meetup, I want to unsubscribe, but I can't. So you're kind of like,
I have a story actually. So I'm doing exactly what the advice you're giving is fantastic. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you still hear us? I mean, we can hear you, John David.
Now
okay, can you hear me? Cool. So Stoney, that's some fantastic advice, and I am already implementing on that, and in multiple ways actually. So number one, after every chapter of the new case study courses, we have like 5 questions of feedback. And what's interesting is that I can see a different buyer psychology of those who came from the podcast versus those who came from the ads.
Yep.
And I'm reaching out to the people who are buying and saying, hey, I'm just curious, where did you find me? And the most recent purchase was a guy who said, I found you while I was looking into the Google certification, saw you and Al's live stream, watched all of those, then I've watched about 15 of your episodes. So like we already have a relationship, which is weird. And I'm trying to get used to this whole parasocial thing. So he's like had a relationship, a personal connection to the content we put out. So like to that content marketing, it's super valuable. and we have like, I don't know, like 120, 150 hours worth of long form analytics industry content out there. But the people who have that personal connection to our content are much kinder in the reviews. So he's giving me like 8, 9 reviews on each of the feedbacks, like what's the quality of this lecture to you, versus someone who came. I think these are the people who either just came, they didn't come directly from an ad because we haven't had that straight conversion yet, but they saw the ads and then maybe came back a day later and bought. So they're giving us, 3s, 4s, and 5s on those feedback questions. So I can see a direct, and I think the kind of missing link between why is this person rating is high and this person rating is low is the brand position. So if they've listened to us talk for 30 hours, they see us as an expert and they respect us, and they're just going to kind of.
So this is what podcasts and YouTube channels are, is you are establishing authority, building rapport and a relationship and community. This is what big businesses have difficulty doing. If they hire a good developer advocate or evangelist, and they allow that person the freedom to create an authentic community. So hopefully you're capturing email addresses, and then you don't abuse those email addresses, and you prune your list to increase deliverability. Are you using sequencing software from like ConvertKit, or like Drip went up market? They kind of upset. They were acquired by Lead Pages, and so you create sequences that have value that you.
We're using MailChimp right now, so I mean, I think part of it's a bandwidth issue of like, so we just lost Al, so I'm having to take over social media manager responsibilities, create the content, teach a lecture or teach 2 lectures every week, host the podcast, make sure that we're having guests. I'm wearing all the hats right now, except although Hunter is starting to, I'm starting to offload some of my hats onto him. But so
you need to delegate.
We're not there yet.
You need to delegate because you're working in the business instead of on the business.
Right.
And it's difficult. And then some things maybe you don't want to do it. Like maybe I hate to use this like 4-hour, which is not 4-hour. It's about what actually matters. And then when you do it, you got to do it for long enough. And then I don't know I can't remember the name. There's a book that talks about like 21 marketing channel. I can't remember the title, but what it says is when you're trying to go to the next level, sometimes you have to stop using the channels that you're currently using that are giving you success, and you're going to have to transition to new channels, but you have to try and then double down on the channels that are working. But you need a statistically significant number to have confidence that data is not an exception, that it's not a coincidence. Like I have 95% confidence that the result that I got for these ads A, B, C, D is actually the best performing ad, and it's not an anomaly, it's not a coincidence, because I sampled this number of ads.
Okay, this is an I have a follow-up question to this. So what is statistically significant? I can never say that word when it comes to marketing. So is it because what is it? 35 is like a sample size.
It's just enough? This is just like frequentist statistics, and so this is like when you have an experiment, okay, and you want, like a lot of people misinterpret confidence intervals. They don't understand what it actually means. And what it actually means is that when I had this uniform distribution of, I showed people, these people add A, this people add B, this people add C. And there was a KPI that I was trying to optimize, which is customer satisfaction, because I want to increase the lifetime value of that customer, because it costs me more to acquire that customer for the first course. I need them to buy the second course before I start to see value. So what you're trying to ensure is by having enough people see those ads and choose that that it wasn't just a coincidence, that you're like 95% confident, 99% confident that that experiment actually showed you the truth, and not, it just wasn't a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what this is telling you. But also in the beginning, you want to talk to your customers, right? Like when you're developing a new course, you might want to develop this out in the open and put some of the content out in the open and see how people are responding before you have the whole course. Because who wants to develop a course for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and then find out that nobody's interested? The other thing you got to be careful about. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot here, John.
Okay, so let me pause you there. So yeah, that's exactly what I did during the lockdown. I spent 6 months developing a course that was 7.5 hours that went out on Udemy, and that was nerve-wracking into itself, because it's like I am so invested in this, and there's been zero testing. It's like I put so much. A lot of the judgments I made were just kind of like within a vacuum in my head of, all right, this is the direction we're going to go in. And it turns out that a lot of people didn't like the structure of it. And I could have known that if I would have started small and kind of started building out from a base. But also too, what I'm realizing is I just don't want to be on platforms like Udemy. It's commoditized learning, and what you get is it's like a race to the bottom. So you don't get quality creators are not going to stay on there, because there is a market force that pushes it down to $10. Like it's
I'm having the same experience in Upwork, and there's people telling me that if I just stay on there, that I don't want all my business from there, but that it's a good. But I'm just like, man, I have wasted so much time, and I have, and they're going to take like 20%. And then 10% later. And when there's intent, that can be worth it, right? Because it's like people who are technical, somebody who's a technical employee, like a person that, but is not involved with lead generation, qualification. Like, how do I qualify these customers? Which customers should I listen to? Because these other customers actually are not my customers. And if I listen to them, I'm going to develop the wrong product. Right. And now I've forgotten what I was trying to get.
So this is, all right, I have thoughts on Udemy or Upwork, which, I mean, this is a total side tangent, but I think it's interesting because I know that a lot of people are watching the YouTube channel who are surprisingly, like we're looking at the demographics on our LinkedIn page. The majority of people who are watching this podcast are senior or managerial level. I thought we would have mostly entry-level people watching, but they're very interested in the consulting side of things. So I've got a quick little anecdote that like just happened within the past couple weeks. So on Upwork, it's commoditized. So there's a marketplace, and you are competing for a select few projects. So that's going to push your price down to where I'm in a position where I am seen as like the go-to expert in analytics. Like, for example, I had a client here in Greensboro, actually, who wanted to implement analytics for his organization, which is a national chain. And he started learning about analytics, took one of my LinkedIn courses, realized I was in town. Then he was willing to pay $200 just for me to sit down with him and have a meeting and maybe even take on the project. So you see, that's a difference to where I'm charging $250 an hour for consulting work versus getting that on Upwork I think it's really, really tough.
No, to tell you, people don't even respond to my proposals.
Really?
Like I've had very few responses, and I've been embedding videos, short video, and answering exactly what their problem is. And it could be a chicken and the egg thing. And I just wanted another channel that had intent. But I'm realizing for my short term, I'm going to have to go back to when I don't have inbound warm leads, I'm going to have to actually do cold calling and cold outreach, which is pretty brutal. It's not very fun. But the warm inbound leads from long term like multiple touches are a better way, but it takes time. It might take like 6 months. So
Right.
yeah, I've been kind of not very pleased with how much effort I've expended on Upwork when people don't even answer. And I don't have history, right? I don't have earnings history. I don't have reviews. And then like you said, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a hit initially. I'm going to do some work that I would not do, or for a price I would not do, because it's not sustainable, in order to get past the chicken and the egg where I have reviews and earnings. But people, yeah. So there's people that say, hey, if you just persevere for 4 months, that it's worth it. But maybe it's because the time that they entered this market and gained their reputation, it was in a different state.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So Mr. Boot BDI is saying that he's having the same experience on Upwork. What's funny is I didn't think we would go down this rabbit hole, but I mean, it sounds like our audience is very interested in this, because my opinion is that Upwork is a great way for you to kind of expand out from your base. For example, I landed a client where I was doing survey analysis, and it's actually kind of what I learned through that project is how I developed my survey analytics case study course. And they did a huge survey, sent me the raw data. I threw into Tableau, created an interactive Likert scale so that they could then digest that information and come up with marketing recommendations. Interesting. So we got some more people chiming in here. So what would be the best place, like Upwork or LinkedIn or Twitter, for remote data analytics projects? I'm currently learning. This is tough. So if you're learning analytics, I think getting a remote gig is an uphill battle. What do you think, Stoney?
Yeah. So I would look at the market, what you think the market wants. One problem is people that write the job descriptions or project descriptions, sometimes they ask for everything. They ask for too many things, and they don't focus on what they really need, so good descriptions will differentiate between this is mandatory, ideal, a plus. Like they'll differentiate in their list. Like when they ask for too many things, it's a sign that somebody who's not connected to the work has written this, or
right.
Because you go there and you do the work and you're like, you don't use any of these things you asked me about here. Like you asked me for a big laundry list and I'm only using 2 technologies. So look carefully and then create portfolio items that would resonate with that vertical. So like if they're doing PPC, or if they're doing, like, make something that actually they are doing that they're going to be interested in. And one problem doing this is a lot of times you're not able to get access to the data, and real data is always better. I think there's a guy from Tableau that has this website called Faker Data. And what's really good is he has some like call center data, marketing data, and then he actually has some reviews where he goes over the dashboards that are created. And an important thing to note is that being an analyst or a data scientist is not about dashboards. In fact, companies really would actually like you to use a product that minimizes the amount of time that you spend doing that. And when they have employees that have more like engineering skills or higher skills, they really want to prioritize what you are working on, and they don't want you spending time on that because it's expensive, and they want to ensure that those resources are being used for the most important tasks. So I got away from what we were talking about.
All right, so we got a question from Dang, which I don't know if that is his real name or if he's joking there, but
yeah, feel free to tell us your real name in the chat. By the way, we're all friends here.
Yeah. So he's a Cognos analytics developer. Do you ever use Cognos, or where should he focus? 'Cause I'm not familiar with Cognos.
This is really problematic, guys. Like I would look at the vertical or horizontal you're in. Like in a vertical, like, are you in insurance? Are you doing PPC? Are you managing sales leads, like a team of salespeople? Are you working with scientific data? They might tend to gravitate towards a certain tools. Look for tools that are more prevalent and have a community behind them, so that when you have a problem, there's other people that have the same problem. There's more customers that use those tools. There are so many different tools out there right now that it's problematic, because like we want somebody who has experience. What do you
Sorry,
think, John?
we're streaming on Twitch. Ignore that.
Oh,
comment.
I have a story about Twitch, John. I went and looked for data science, and
I'm offended that
their search results, let's just say it was not safe for work. And I was like, what? You know,
Shruti.
Hey, Shruti, what's up?
How's it going? Awesome. Well,
so I searched on data science. I found this really good Twitch stream where this person was ingesting like pandemic data using SQL Server, and it was some more complex that used like what's the acronym CTE stand for? Table expressions. It's a better way, so you don't do nested queries in SQL.
so you were a
when
lot
you
more
use
technical
with.
than I have no idea. So
No,
I told you I'm like in the kiddie pool when it comes to like technical side. I'm more on like a business strategist with some like Tableau and a little bit of
Yeah.
SQL.
So this is
Trickle down.
important. Like, John, if you go to an organization and sometimes there's different copies of the data, you can get the wrong answer. Like somebody else will get a different answer and you'll lose the trust of the stakeholders, like the execs, like, because your numbers are not adding up. So maybe in the vertical.
Common table expressions?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dan. The common table expressions make the SQL query so much more understandable. One problem with like SQL is great. It's very efficient. It doesn't take as much. You can ramp up on SQL quickly. It's really a universal time-tested tool. You should definitely learn SQL. If you're not using SQL in your current job, you need to do it on the side. And have you ever heard of the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, John?
No, I have no idea. That sounds interesting.
It's a psychologist, I think, from Germany, like from the 1800s. And it's like after an hour, you forget like 60% of the information you're exposed to. And it's the importance of studying and reviewing things a little bit every day. This is crucial for you to build your knowledge base. So common table expression. So there was the guy that was talking about Cognos, like what should I learn? So look at your employers, like what problems are they trying to solve? Are they trying to look at sales leads, conversion? Are they looking at PPC campaigns? How well are these ads converting? Are we losing money on these Facebook ads? Are people churning from our product? Are we selling them a product that is not very good or not solving the right problem? Did we make too many features when really they're only using 2 or 3 features of a product? And we should make the UX UI, we should make that better. You need to do a portfolio project and use tools that the community is using. Is this newfangled tool going to lose its support? Is it going to become a dead project on GitHub? Are there like an example is like Plotly Dash. Like if you're a Python developer, you might like it because you don't have to write JavaScript. But who's using it? It may be a good tool, but unfortunately, so this is where Tableau is very important. You see that people use Tableau. And here's another important secret. Tableau will qualify the customer that they have a budget. That's huge.
Yeah, that's true. So Inkar is chiming in. She agrees with you about forgetting stuff. On that note of forgetting things, I view it as it's like a weekly or daily practice. Like you are going to forget the things that you are not actively doing and applying and working on. And it can, even if what you're working on right now is not the skill set you want in the future, what you can still do is have your passion projects on the side. And I've got a fantastic story to share with one of my neighbors, actually. So one of my neighbors, he was an engineer for Facebook. He got really interested in web development and got recruited by Adobe. And I think he's on the team that's going to help push them more into the web space. So he got hired by Adobe because of the experience he gained from his passion project that paid him $0. So I think that there's something about, because I'm not really, it's funny because I'm seen as like the professor, but I'm not really studious. I don't like study. I just like actively do things and follow the things that I'm genuinely curious about. And then I have a skill set because of that. If that makes any sense.
No, there's when you work best in collaborating with people that have different strengths. And so it's best when you have teams, like sometimes for managerial organizations, that you embed like people who have strong data skills. You embed people that have good organization and project management skills, people that understand the psychology of customers. Like sometimes the startups will hire people who have an anthropology background in order to go do focus groups or studies. And like, remember that I said that you want to talk to your customers. You at least need to sample, like, where do my customers hang out? What language do they use? What problem are they solving? What are they doing right now? Do they have budget? Oh, these customers meet all these other requirements, but unfortunately, it's not going to sustain our business to serve these customers. These are the wrong customers to develop our product for. Yeah.
All right, we got some viewer. Hunter, you got something to add?
So I actually wanted to go off of Jonathan's question. Jonathan was asking about Python projects and how you would develop your Python skills for real world clients. I just have begun attempting to learn Python. It's been definitely a struggle, but we're getting there. I've been using Jupyter Lab through Anaconda on a Windows machine to do a lot of my coding, and so I actually want to piggyback off of Jonathan. What would you say? Would you say that something like that the annotation of the way that you would code makes it a large difference? Could you learn entirely in like Jupyter Lab, for example, and or would you recommend branching out and using different styles of Python writing? I don't know.
Okay, so if you use Python, you definitely need to work on projects, because that's what's going to allow you day after day. You're going to start becoming familiar with these things that seem to not have any meaning. So the project is going to enable you to struggle a little bit and to start to remember this information. In Python notebooks, you're able to start refactoring your code into functions, and you're able to even put a test in there if you want. And then in Jupyter Lab, you're able to convert your code. It will convert your code to Python, like from a notebook. And then you're able to use things like VS Code to start. So start out in a notebook, because you're able to interact. And if your data is too big, take a sample of the data. Don't work with the entire data set. In Postgres, there's actually a function to take like a Bernoulli sample. So yes, I use notebooks a lot. Some people don't like them, but you're able to take this step, start in the notebook, then refactor that code in that notebook so that you have functions. And then you can, I can't remember exactly how, but from the notebook, you can tell it, convert this to Python. Then use freely available VS Code that has linting. So linting is checking the grammar of your code. Use things like PEP8 to make sure that you adhere to style guidelines, and then really try to learn how to write some tests, simple tests using PyTest. Okay, so the important thing is work on a project that would be interesting to your target audience. When you're going to go submit resumes, don't send out 100 resumes without looking carefully that there's like some overlap. Like target 20, 30 positions that you think that maybe you're a good fit and that you're interested in. And then try to work on a portfolio piece that would be interesting to them. Maybe you can go look, I can send the link later, look for the Faker data at first, because when you put the training wheels on at first, there's so many things you have to learn. This is a journey. You can't just, like, even now I have lots of things in my notebooks where I'm like, oh, that is horrible. That code is not modular, or I don't have tests, or I just dropped the rows and I never went back and had the raw data and then a new column where I filled in the missing data. There's a lot of basic things that I could talk about, like, but
what is see, I'm not familiar with Python at all. So she says I use
fine.
Google Colab.
Yeah, so the great thing about this is if you're going more towards the modeling, or you want to share, these notebooks are available for free on the Google computing platform. And so you're able to use like GPUs, like graphics processing units, if you're doing like any machine learning, like deep learning, or even now GPUs are coming to analytics through a software package called Rapids. You can also use R on Google Colab. So one thing is, if you have a laptop that's not very performant, you don't have very much memory, you can use these Google, like some people make courses, like there's a guy named that has a computer vision course, Andrew Brock, I think, and all of his classes have notebooks on Google Colab, and this allows his students to use a GPU or more memory than they have. And so this is a great resource. If you're programming in R, I personally think that the IDE named RStudio is better for doing analysis in R. And I think that Jupyter Lab could improve its interface a little bit by copying some of the user interface from RStudio, like being able to see your tabular data, or being able to look up documentation.
I've worked in RStudio a little bit too. Yeah, I agree with you there.
But don't spread yourself too thin. At first, choose something and gain some depth. Do a project, because when you're going to go to an employer, you need to have enough substance in a technology to provide value, to take something off their plate. So when John says, I need somebody to do this task for me because I don't have enough time and I'm overwhelmed, you need to have enough depth where he doesn't have to hold your hand too much. When he invests time in you, that you're going to provide value to him and take something off of his plate, right? So I highly advise like choose Python, choose R, and then complement that with SQL. Complement that with some domain expertise in like, how do you Google ads? Like I think John, that Jason Whaling, you should bring him on your channel for a where you like cross-channel promotion, because he can teach you a lot about Google ads and really accelerate your results that you're getting right now. So I think you should reach out to him.
Well,
He's a great
we're
guy.
getting a little bit on the toes of Ryan Ford. So Ryan is my my marketing. Well, he owns Fungi Marketing, which is a relatively large marketing agency now.
Okay, I understand.
And he's one of my best friends, and we. But I mean, it would be interesting to have him come on and because I'm open to people seeing the data. I don't mind. But I trust Ryan, which you made a point about marketing agencies and marketers just like not quantifying their data really well. Or choosing vanity metrics.
Their incentive is to spend your ad budget.
Right.
And then what a lot of times happens, like I will send you some links that some insider information on, like, it's the big providers really don't have the incentive to get rid of fraud. And the big players like Walmart, they know that this fraud exists, but they don't care because they're able to achieve the results because their budgets are large enough that the fraud is not that significant to them. It exists. It's not ideal, but like big companies like Target, Walmart, The big brands, it doesn't affect them as much, but the small, especially the small and medium, ad fraud really hurts it, like chews up a lot of their budget. And you'll see that Google said that they're going to get away from the third-party cookies, but they're not. They backtracked on that because they really don't have an alternative right now. Apple is the one that's more enforcing this. Yeah. So
well, it's just
I
it's
think
interesting.
that Jason is very.
I think we're on a
Jason is
little bit of a lag.
Jason is very ethical and transparent. So I think if you talk to Ryan, because he's your friend, you have a deep relationship with him, find out what would work. I think that you could work something out that would be mutually beneficial to Ryan, you, and Jason.
Well, I mean, it's also like he's my friend, yes, but also the way we structured our deal is that he gets 10% of top line revenue. So I made him invest in my business because I was a little bit worried about. He works with some major clients, so I was worried that I was going to be put on the back burner. But the way that I structured that deal is that as we grow, he's going to grow with us, and he's going to spend more and more time with it. But right now we're still just testing.
What you said, that is so important. This is what big businesses get, where they don't care about this anymore. That's why they spam you to death. Is you want to make sure that the incentives are aligned. When you have incentives that are aligned, especially when you're a small and medium business, this is what will allow you to do well and have a sustainable business. Do your customers have a win-win? Do you have a win-win relationship where you're like, I win, I got money? So like when you talk about your partners, you want to make sure that you have your incentives are aligned. Like an example is somebody who was working through Accenture for Best Buy, and the CEO wanted them to create a recommender system. It was one of their where, hey, we have to reinvent ourselves. Best Buy has gotten into trouble a couple times, and they had to reinvent themselves. And this person I know was tasked with implementing the recommender system. But unfortunately, the CEO did not align incentives with his directors and managers. And so they would not give him the data to make the recommender system. And the irony is that the business needed a recommender system that worked well. If they didn't have a recommender system that worked well, they could die. And so aligning incentives with your salespeople, like the salespeople will produce what how their incentives are structured. They'll deliver you those results. Be thoughtful and creative how you structure your, like if the customer stays for 6 months, then you get this other portion of the commission. So like what you were talking about is so important.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just being around. Like, this is probably my 4th or 5th business that I've started. So it's not like I don't have that. It's funny because I think this is the biggest opportunity that's come to me to date, but I have had enough failures that I'm like, my enthusiasm has been somewhat curved. Like, I've seen what can go wrong at this point. Although this is the first time that I find myself in a scalable business where we have these courses.
No, but I like what you said, John. You know, I think you were talking about, like, you would just mention the elephant in the room. You're like saying, okay, I had this potential customer. They want me to do these things for free. That is a red flag. Mm-hmm. So like when you're trying to qualify a customer or you're trying to qualify an employer, for the people that are in this room, like, does the person want to negotiate price aggressively? Does the person want to renegotiate the timeline? Like, oh, you tell me that it takes me 2 weeks to do this, but I want you to do it in a week. I want you to do it for half. I want you to do this for free. We're special. We're okay. Like, I had an example when they are like, we work with the Bill and Gates. I got to be careful about.
Don't name drop.
Yeah, they didn't pay me.
Really?
I delivered the product, and they never paid me. They just stopped answering my phone calls and emails.
I'm fortunate, and then that situation has not happened to me. An entrepreneur friend of mine almost went bankrupt because a client paid them on a credit card and then called the company and said this was fraudulent, and then reversed. It was like a $20,000 payment on project they worked over for like 3 or 4 months. So all of that. I mean, it's you run into some horror stories, but I wanted to circle back to this concept of that I'm working through myself, and I think it applies to those not necessarily who are looking for a full-time job, but if you're looking to get into consulting. So I'm trying to bust out of like the $10 set point of Udemy and getting into the hundreds of, if not thousands of dollars eventually with the new platform. That is akin to going from an hourly rate to a base retainer model in consulting. Because I'm at a base retainer model now, but I've kind of reverse engineered it that I'm getting paid $250 an hour at least. So what you're doing when you're getting paid on a base retainer is that you are not nitpicking on how hours are specifically spent. It's like, look, pay me $250, pay me $2,500 a month, and we'll get this project done eventually. And they're looking at, all right, this project's worth $200,000 to us. I'm willing to pay $10,000 over, a 4-month period. That's like it changes the calculus and how they think about you as a resource, which I think is really interesting. And also that's like getting on Upwork, you're seen as that commodity. You're seen as that widget that they're going to invest, 4 widgets, 4 hours of your time, and this should be solved that way.
Yeah. So you should break projects into smaller pieces. Like anytime somebody wants to sign a contract that's huge, you should at least split it into like 3 projects, and have the deliverables be submitted. And in your deliverables, you should mention what you don't deliver. Like these are deliverables, and then these are not included in order to help clarify it. And don't allow a project to become too big. Keep the project smaller so that it can be, you need to finish that project before the deadline. And if you have things that you need from the customer, you need to be careful, because if they have not paid any money down and they don't have commitment on that project, they may be slow to give you the things you need to do the project. You also need to know, how would we know if we're successful? How would we know that? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you've seen other people do this? And then in your contract, you need to go eventually work with a lawyer to have clauses that, but a big thing is getting the person to pay a certain amount down to start work.
See, that's interesting. I don't do that. And maybe it's that I am, so the utility of Upwork is that they put the project in escrow, and it takes away kind of that, like you said, you had a client, upon completion, you had a client walk away. That sucks. And I totally understand why you would want a down payment. I feel like that's going to chase away quite a few clients, because then, the exact reciprocal could happen where you could just take their money and walk away.
If it's not a problem, then don't worry about it. But it's been like some of the people that I talk to, other freelancers, it's a problem.
What I think the problem is here, and it's funny because we were going to talk about messy data, and now we're going into like advanced coding and now consulting work, which is fine. I'm going to have to change the title of the episode. But
can we circle back to messy data, and I will quickly
we can
we'll go through.
We can, but let me finish this one point about if you are finding remote consulting clients, there is a level of like anonymous. They're anonymous. You don't know them, to where like I built my consultancy in Greensboro, and it's a very small business community. So if someone screws me over, there is social consequence. They burnt some social capital, because I am going to say this person was a nightmare to work with. And as I've kind of become more prominent within this, small business community, that opinion matters, because there will people will not work with the people that I'm like, well, because I am having people reach out to me like, hey, what's your opinion on this person? What should I or should I not go with them? And I mean, if you screwed me over, I'm not going to hesitate to say this person's
always
unethical.
Be careful about how you say it. Say it in a fair and just way. But I'm sure, John, you're good. I can tell that you're savvy about how to describe what happened in an objective and fair way. But you have a good point. When you work with local businesses, but some people who live in areas where, like for a period of time, I lived in Selma, Alabama, and I had relatives in Cuba, Alabama, and those people in order to have success, definitely need to reach out to customers in other geographies. But you have a very good point, and you need to establish relationships over time. And things may not come to fruition for like six months, but online, like people get to know you. They like through this YouTube channel, and they become your net promoters. Like the net promoter score is like 9 or 10. You've established authority. You've established a relationship. If you develop some of the content or give some of your best value online, that proves that they're like, I want to support you. I think that you are an authority, and like I think that I would benefit from this class. You also find out what people are not interested, which is similar to like doing keyword research on SEMrush or Ubersuggest from Neil Patel. Like what are the tail keywords, but also it's more like the small focus group. You're kind of talking to an audience and finding out what they need. But yes, local customers, they need to preserve their reputation more, so you don't have as much risk.
Okay. Yes. All right. So let's close out the episode on messy data, which I guess we started talking about it at the beginning, but then we've gone down like a
Okay, so
multiple
one
rabbit
problem
holes.
is data that's siloed. People won't give you data.
Mhm.
Data that you want to use to augment because you don't have any data. So an example is I had a customer that was accustomed to making weather data. So they're used to getting like really well structured data from NOAA. And they're trying to do a model as a contractor to Amazon for traffic. And they have this naive they want to give me this national highway transportation data, but guess what? It's not going to help you. But at that time, there was some data aggregated data from Mapbox. So Mapbox had like real-time data, and you can pay for that. But they didn't understand why they need to pay for that. And they also didn't understand that if I deliver a model to Amazon that's naive, and when the person goes to audit it, they're not going to be very happy with me. In fact, you could get sued by somebody by providing a model that's not using best practices. Okay, so is there data? Is the data siloed? Like the Best Buy example, their promotion depends upon the results, and they're not really that keen on giving you the data. The CEO has not aligned expectations. The data is upstream from Facebook, and they just change it on you. Or Fivetran, the connector is broken, so now everything is broken. Or I thought that my data was getting updated every week, but when I put some validation in there, I found out that I was getting null data. That the aggregate data that I had from the past year doesn't include the last 2 weeks. So missing data, you need to validate. In Python, they don't currently really, like pandas, they don't have the concept of null value. So null values are kind of problematic in Python. I don't know if have you run into that at all, Hunter?
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing is missing data. If you just drop the rows, you're going to lose the variance. So initially, kind of like how I told you to take a sample, like a Bernoulli sample using the Postgres, or just doing it manually with random, because it's just too big to work with and be to iterate quickly. Eventually go back and I have a column, and now I'm going to impute a new column where I'm going to use linear regression using the ICE or MICE method, but I'm going to preserve the raw data. I'm always going to have that raw data. Another thing is, do you have duplicate values? Like, did people do data entry more than one time? Did they do a cross join and they have duplicates? So
Stoney, I hate to interrupt you, but I actually have. So I've been working with this fire data that I started out looking at as, oh, it was a cool little side project that I could work on, and it's evolved into this. I really want to create a really well fleshed out, cleaned up piece of data with a clear question, so that our audience can get some meaningful value out of that. And so some of the problems that you've explained, including the problems with null values and whatnot, have shown up multiple times in the data set, and it's a data set that has over 200,000 data points in it. Is there a recommended size that, because you recommended squeezing down some of the unnecessary?
Go look at there's a formula for statistical power. So like let's say like often like you might use census data sets, like you might use the labor data set to look at job losses. You may use the population data set to normalize you don't want to use like raw counts in a chloropleth, like you want to normalize it to population or normalize it. You might want to look at housing supply.
So
Look
this was specifically fire incident data, and so the way that I sorted it down thus far was by that there's a nature code for one of the columns, and it's the nature of the call into the fire department. And so I sorted it down to anything that has FIRAL, which stands for fire alarm. And it sorted it down to somewhere around 40,000.
So number one, always try to find out, why am I doing this? Why am I doing it? Because it's difficult to work with the entire data set with the resources that I have, and I want to iterate and get an idea of what data exists. So that's the why. The how is I'm taking a sample. So if I'm using Postgres, I could use that Bernoulli sample. If I'm using Python, I could use the random function to pseudo-randomly sample the data. But the key word that you need to research is statistical power. Now, why would you use statistical power? To make sure that your sample has the possibility of representing the data set. Another thing is always provide, what is the source of my data? The years 2012 through 2015 from Census, the American Community Survey. John, are we doing okay here?
Yeah, we're good. I just got a text from Tim. He said this podcast is fire. So
okay, good. I'm glad to hear that, man.
Also, too, I mean, we're doing great. He said, thanks for coming, Stoney. Today, I learned about managing missing data by taking a sample of the data. Yeah, we're good.
But don't forget why. Like if you're not having a problem with the size, you have plenty of resources. But the key is to iterate quickly, but take a large enough sample so that the sample represents the population. In your data, do people know what a data dictionary is? So you want to make sure that, what do these fields mean? What are the units? Like if I have an exercise thing on my wrist, is it heartbeats per minute? Temperature, is it Celsius? Is it Fahrenheit? A lot of times in the column name, I will put in parentheses and I'll put meters or Celsius. Do I have a data dictionary? And then like you might have a methodology. This data was acquired by talking to senior managers from LinkedIn who are in the tech space about what they think about diapers. Is that sample biased? Is it probably representative of knowledge of diapers? No. Senior level managers are probably older. Do they work for Johnson & Johnson? So they know a lot about diapers, or do they work for Facebook? They don't know anything about diapers except for that they had a kid 10 years ago. Are there females, males? So include methodology. So you, and maybe you're not able to get better data. But at least be transparent to your audience that's going to make a decision based on this data.
So we actually have been, so I've been working on this with Tim Leisman, as you know, and we plan on reaching out to the fire department to obtain a data dictionary, because there's definitely, like you said, there's some unclear data points in there. Like, for example, there's a few under that column that I was telling you about that may or may not be related to fire incidents, and that's what we're really trying to sort out, because there's some for, like, medical issues or whatnot that are still called into the fire department, but they're unrelated to what we're trying to look for. And so, like you said, I think it's important to really specify which
yeah, the majority of like responses by fire departments are medical.
yeah.
Fires are less. Though we know it's really important right now, like California, and there's severe drought, that fire is a huge issue. And I'm sure that these people would be love to explain things to you. You'll be able to get time from them. Like, think about if you live in Carson City or Lake Tahoe right now, like it's really sad to see what's happening. And so you want to understand that data better. You want to talk to the people who collected that data, and you only have so much time to do this, right? But you want to know, like, what does this data mean? What are the units? Are they meters or Celsius? So like if you have heartbeat and you have the heartbeat is 300 and 220, and you're like, oh, that seems like an outlier. That is outside the norm of the range. And you're like, oh, it's heartbeats for a hummingbird. Oh, it's within the normal range.
All right, we got to give some attention to our chat. So we got Tim chiming in here. So Tim was saying, is this true? So Data Triad up. So tell us a little bit about that. What's going on there?
So the data triad group is it's a group here in Greensboro that has it's dedicated to open source knowledge of coding, data science, and data analytics as a whole. And so specifically, we've had help on this project from a person named Bob. Bob, I'm gonna omit his last name because I'm not sure if he wants me to talk about too much about that. But he has been extremely knowledgeable and helpful in terms of the he already has done a lot of the nitty gritty for learning learning Python, and he helps me give me a direction to still go through that nitty gritty, because I think that's how you learn, is by struggling through something. But he makes it more guided. It gives a little bit of a sense of direction, and so I mean it's been a great help. Tim's right in saying that that the data triad group has really helped out.
I mean, it sounds like you found like a mentor in the community, which I think is a phenomenal way of growing your skill set.
Yeah.
So you have a project, you can bring your mentor in, you guys can collaborate on it. And I mean, think about the time you saved and his guidance, just, giving you the straight shot as opposed to like the long, windy adventure to
enormous.
You're in
enormous.
In
I've seen the books. They're definitely hefty. I'll say that.
All right. Speaking of books, we have two questions. So Inkar and Shahadul are both asking about statistics books. Do you guys have any recommendations on where they can go ahead and get some books on that?
There's a book called The Elements of Analytical Style that you can get on, and it's really good. And then some of the R books, like from like Hadley Wickham has really good freely available books, but there's this one that you can buy. It's like a sliding scale. It's called the I'm going to type it in the chat here. The Elements of Data Analytic Style. And the author is, let's see. Sorry, I don't have the author right now. And then some of the books from Hadley Wickham. I don't know if his of our studio. He has them available on GitHub. And for Python, there is a stats model is one of the packages that you would use for cleaning data. There's a book called Data Wrangling that's published by O'Reilly and Associates. It's a little bit older now, but so that book that I just mentioned is very affordable. There's some more advanced books. I'm hesitant to mention them because people will just never make it. There's some books from Stanford University there's an easier version and there's a more difficult version, and they're kind of like the canonical references. But statistics, you have to learn things multiple times before you, like, there's things I didn't understand until like 5 years later, until I took like 3 statistics courses. And so you need to repeat these. And unfortunately, statistics books usually only give you one example per concept. And so when you have a teacher, it's really important that they work out examples and they give you access to those examples so that you can understand the concept. Is that helpful?
Yeah. So Tim is also asking about Khan Academy YouTube videos.
So I'd like to actually speak to the efficacy of Khan Academy, as well as there's free YouTube sources like Free Data Camp. I don't know if you've ever heard of Free Data Camp, but they offer full 13-hour lectures on different subjects in the field of analytics.
Wow.
And they are it's ridiculous. I don't know how they can throw stuff like that out there.
So never always, that's why, like, when John provides good like, you want to support the people who are producing good content, right? So Khan Academy, they there's a difference between a reference and a guided journey. So you need to break up your content into smaller pieces that are consumable. So right now, unfortunately, Free Data Camp is relying on the fact that, like, YouTube will save your place where you're at, but you can easily lose your place. And so it would be really great if they would also break it up into a playlist of smaller pieces, because you should not rely on like cookies that say you're at time 3 hours and 32 minutes, because it's kind of like when you fall asleep listening to an audiobook and you're like, oh man, where did I fall asleep at? I don't want to listen to the whole book again. So a pedagogy that's more modern, that we had educational consultants at General Assembly who taught us like to have a topic that is that adults are motivated to learn, lecture for a short period of time, followed by hands-on activities. Never lecture in the antiquated pedagogy from a university where you lecture for an hour and people fall asleep. In a meeting, you can't present more than like 10 or 12 minutes. You need to pull them back out. Like, you need to have something that allows them to regain their attention, except for a small group of people that are super focused and drink 3 cups of coffee.
I will say, since I am a student, I might be a little bit more accustomed to that lecture style. So that might just work for me as a student. But I agree with you that a lot of people might lose attention after, like, 20 or 30 minutes, and they need to step off and take a break, and then they come back, they want to be at the same place where they left off so they don't miss anything.
Well, that's not how
so when you're studying
you last semester.
You need to see things 4 times. So before you go to the class, you should scan your book to know what they're talking about. If you actually read it and do some of the problems, then when you go to class, you're going to understand what the person lecturing is actually explaining, and you're going to be able to actually ask questions that are that clarify, instead of just trying to show off or waste other people's time. So you need to see material 4 times. Remember the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. You need to study things a little bit every day in order to remember them. That's the way our brain works. You need to get enough sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to be as effective. There's a thing called spaced repetition. The spaced part is not really so important, but the repetition on a frequent basis. If you're in a class where they lecture for a long time, you need to use mechanisms to help you stay engaged. So maybe tapping your foot, taking notes. My problem is that I have a tremor, and it's easy for, you can see that I can get off on a tangent. So like John has to bring me back in.
Well, so Hunter, what was our approach to teaching it? Because my class was the first exposure you had to analytics ever, right?
Pretty much. And it was much, I have an idea where you're going with this question, and the feel of the class. Am I right in saying that?
Well, yeah. Well, answer the question.
So John actually had a much different approach that kept me engaged in analytics. And actually, I mean, I would argue that it got me to where I am right now, because it was just so interesting to me, all the stuff that he would set up. So the way that he would guide the classes is that he'd provide some data, or he'd provide an activity for the day, like going over YouTube analytics, for example. And then it was up to us, the students, to what would you say? Did you say
Tell me
take the
something
wheel?
interesting. Yeah. Oh, get in the driver's seat.
Get in the driver's seat. It's up to us to get in the driver's seat and metaphorically teach the class. Not so much teach, but like go through it, really struggle through it in front of everybody, and then everybody has an input. And John is there to facilitate that. He's not necessarily going to tell you exactly what you need to do every step of the way.
Right. I'm realizing it's kind of bumping up against like the Socratic method of teaching, where I just ask questions and you provide the answers. And then if it's the wrong answer, I might go a level deeper of like, well, why do you think that? And then make them explain it and realize, oh, that this is kind of some faulty logic.
They kind of talk themselves out of it. It's
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's critical thinking, which is so hard to teach. Because you like, especially like going up to the board and saying, all right, here are the 3 things we're going to learn today. There's 0. That is, I would say that's obedience. They're teaching you to be compliant and to obey and to sit in
this is a loaded topic. This is like the indoctrination. This gets into
it's like an education talk, you know.
It gets more into like geopolitics.
Well, I mean, it's just, I think that, yeah, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but I think that my approach is to be more interactive and to kind of listen, as opposed to, you know, I'm going to throw a politically charged word out there, dictate to the students and just like, but let's get back to the chat. So we're neglecting them. All right. So Inkar already found the book. Stoney, thanks so much for the recommendation on that. And then also Jonathan had a question about what's the Python statistics book. Did you already answer that in the chat?
I'll try to look up for it really quickly. Stats model is the package, one of the packages.
Okay.
There's also for Bayesian a stats model. Then there's MCM PyStan. So like frequentist and Bayesian statistics have advantages and disadvantages. With frequentist, like when you're looking at small data sets, like the number of observations is 32, 33, like should I use the t-test or student t-test in order to test the hypothesis if I have larger amounts of data? So there's so a lot of times people will do Monte Carlo Markov chain Monte Carlo in order to do a numerical estimation of the posterior. So there's something called PyStan in the Stan package. So for books, I think that O'Reilly has a book on. So always look at that book and see if it makes sense for you. For statistics, it's a journey, and it's like you're going up in a 40-story building. And at first, you need to focus just on getting up the first few flights of stairs. And so the book that's appropriate for you now you may need a book that addresses a different group of people, a different segment of people. And so look at that book and see if it is helping you or not, because maybe that book, maybe they know that subject well, but they're not able to explain it to you, or you're just not ready for that book yet, and you need something to help you get started. And so for the Python, I know that there's the stats model book, but I will say that a lot of the freely available books for R, or books that are not so expensive, are really good. It's just that you need to be able to apply that to stats model or PyStan, and don't spread yourself too thin. Choose something. So first, let's reverse, like how John talks about reverse engineering things. Like, what are your goals? Like, I want to get a full-time job as a data analyst. I want to become a data analyst freelancer. I want to become a data scientist. I want to do machine learning, business intelligence. I'm already a business analyst and I want to, so find out where you want to go. Also find people who are a few steps ahead of you. So they have achieved these goals more recently. They didn't achieve them 5 or 10 years ago. They achieved them in the last year, 2 years. And often they're willing to help you find out what are the things that you need to learn. So that's part of the reverse engineering. Now start learning those things and do it a little bit every day. And the content that is, and I really wish people would stop writing for Medium, because Medium is paywalling people's content. They're just, it's kind of like if you publish a journal paper in an expensive Elsevier journal and now they want you to peer review it for free. It's like your free labor. It's kind of the captive Facebook. Sometimes like, oh, you can't, it's paywalled. But reverse engineer it. Look where you want to go, find people or that have achieved it recently and try to connect with them. Look at books that are appropriate for your stage of learning. Does it make sense to you? Because sometimes books make it more confusing. Like after I read about the bonding in chemistry, I'm more confused, and I've already studied chemistry for 3 years. But after I read your material, I'm actually confused, and I already have knowledge of the subject. Does that help? But I need to give you some Python book recommendations, and if you can segment yourself into just beginning, taking some statistics, maybe John could put a poll out on LinkedIn and ask, hey, the people who are consuming my content, what stage are you at? Please don't misrepresent because it doesn't help me serve you. If you give me an honest, sincere answer, I can serve you, not by you trying to tell me that you're more advanced than you are or which subjects you're trying to learn. So maybe a poll, if that sample size is large enough, would help them know what content to produce.
Yeah, we could put Hunter. Maybe that's an intern.
There you go.
An intern task.
I can throw up a poll there later.
Also, you could do that in the Discord. By the way, if you guys want to learn Python, I mean, Hunter, plug it.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm qualified to teach Python right now.
You're using Python.
I don't have that big of an ego.
But you're using Python within the project, right? And
yeah.
What's the name of your group again? Hunter,
it's the Data Triad group. So they're a localized group here in Greensboro that they focus on open source.
I was talking about the Discord server.
So can people in Texas or Mexico or India, can they work with that group? Are you guys remote now due to the
They can't work with that group, but the Discord server for how to get an analytics job is worldwide.
Yeah, so the Discord server that we have, this project that I've been working on is going to be posted to the Discord server. I don't have a time frame for it yet, but this is going to be a much bigger project than I initially had planned, and so when it does come out, it's going to be a big step for the server.
So I highly encourage people to work in groups. You can go a lot further in your journey when you work with other people.
Right.
Like you were talking about Bob, how Bob helped you. So on the Discord server, like one way that you will learn more, Hunter, is by helping people learn Python. You will become better at Python yourself. At university,
Absolutely.
I was a tutor for computer programming and statistics, and I got paid to learn. I learned so much from that.
Well, even Bob, when we're having we meet every Thursday. Even when we're having our sessions, we'll be going through something, and then something won't work the way he thought it would, and so in the session he's going through research or notes or GitHub or whatever he has to reference in order to find out what the issue is. And I think even him, who's been in the field for 10, 20 years, it's still sometimes things still don't click.
John needs a coffee break. Hopefully you don't drink Red Bull. Hopefully you just stick to the caffeinated beverages or push-ups. Sometimes I do push-ups. Does the Pepsi have fructose in it or sugar in it?
It probably has fructose in it, I'd imagine, because
I was gonna say Hunter came over the other day with a McDonald's bag. I mean, he's
No, I do. Do you know what keto is? And
Yeah.
minimizing carbohydrates
yeah.
and trying to stay away from grains. This would really be beneficial for people not to consume. Hey, John, you gotta stretch out. We gotta stretch out here, man.
I actually have a personal. So I've been eating FODMAPs for the last 3 months, but we could go down a whole nutrition rabbit hole. But I mean, we're coming up to an hour and a half. This has been an awesome episode. I mean, it's gone through. I mean, we were talking about consulting and then marketing and then
It's been messy
data.
Teaching,
But
learning,
not very
cleaning
much messy data.
Hey,
But
well, listen, this
really-
episode has a little bit of everything. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it because you're on almost every live stream and you're just dropping wisdom. I mean, Tim.
Well, I've been
Tim
trying to
personally
establish
texted
a
me.
relationship with you guys. I've been trying to establish. So here's what you need to do, everybody on the channel. When you go somewhere like Twitter, you need to try to provide value. Maybe that value is summarizing what was in the conversation so that they have timestamps so people can be selective and use it as a reference. Like, I don't care in hearing about Stoney talk about blah, blah, blah. I want to hear about messy data, or I want to hear about what John had to say. I'm going to go to timestamp 3652 to see the topic that I wanted to. So if you could make notes and then send that to John David or Hunter so that they can paste those timestamps into the summary,
cool.
That also allows Google to surface better search results, right? Unless their automated voice recognition is great. So offer value where you go. When you're first starting out, there's different types of value that you can offer. In business, they call this mastermind. So maybe John is a member of a mastermind group where you're able to share information that you can't share publicly. And then people are able to give more. So these, like what Hunter is doing with the Triad group, you're able to work together and make progress more quickly because you're working in a group. Sometimes groups are not effective. So you got to keep the size right and choose the groups that you choose to join, or try to say, hey, let's try to stay on topic. And then John David might join a mastermind with people who are selling courses or instructors in order to share best practices and what's working for them today and information that they can't just share on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, Stoney, you've been fantastic. This has been wonderful. Hunter, you've awoken something on Twitch that I don't even For those of you who are watching and you saw me crack up, there was a raunchy Twitch comment that showed up. I didn't pull it in, so if you guys weren't watching on Twitch, you didn't see it. But
yeah, I was a little nervous when I first heard that you were streaming on Twitch, just due to the nature of some of the people on there, and this does nothing to ease my suspicions. So I don't.
So here's one of the problems, John David. Like when big companies have recommender systems or search engines that provide a set of results, and then they re-rank those results. And ideally for the customer, when the incentives are aligned, the results are relevant. Unfortunately, if they're maximizing the KPI is, I want to increase the session, like how long was this session, or how much time do people use this per day? A lot of times they want to mix that recommender system up and start introducing things that were not your intent when you searched. And so like I was searching, I told you, for data science on Twitch, and I found this really awesome SQL stream where this guy is doing a lot of complex SQL to ingest pandemic data and doing data cleaning using SQL Server. And I was like, oh, this is probably really good stuff to look at. But then underneath, there was these search results that were not safe for work and were, I don't know if it was, so like if I searched for named entity recognition for, or NLP, natural language processing. So like if we have something that's ambiguous, like a search term, it could be different things, right? Like there could be some software package and it could also mean something else. Like a word has multiple meanings. So it could be a benign, it's just that the search engine or the recommender system was not able to differentiate between these two different meanings of a word, like bank. We ate lunch on the river bank. I went to the bank to deposit money. You can bank on that, an idiomatic expression. But sometimes it's a little bit more nefarious in that they're trying to maximize their KPI. I want you to use Facebook more time per day. I want you to use stay on Twitch. And so I got something that was not safe for work. So I was laughing because I learned something. I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, I was like, yeah.
All right. Well, let's close this bad boy out. We've been streaming for an hour and a half. Thank you so much for your time. Both
John, you can
Hunter and
you can take a bathroom break now, right?
That's true.
And your internet hasn't failed. Your
That's
internet
true.
hasn't failed today. Like, it's been solid.
It has.
Solid as a
I think
stone.
it's the background. I think it's the new background that's doing it.
True. It's
set up
very
by
short.
yours truly. Can I
Yeah.
just say? Never say
All
the
right.
intern didn't do anything.
All right. Well, I'll see you guys later. And thanks everybody if you tuned in for the live chat.
Hey, thanks.